Okay, so this is a new buyer psychology copywriting idea that I'm working on, and I wanted to share it with LinkedIn first. So the basic idea, I'm naming it creating a contrast. That's the name of the technique. Okay. And I'm going to show you a very specific example, and hopefully you'll be able to look at this and apply it to all of your client work and make oodles of money. So we're looking right now at the product page. It's a product called Reverse Air Dryer, which, by the way, I'm a big fan of technical products because there's a better storytelling aspect, right? There's a lot more I can do with the buyer in terms of persuasion, in terms of clarity, explanation, stuff like that. So if you look at their page, you'll notice something really interesting. You'll notice this impossible to miss message, which says, due to high demand and COVID guidelines, give us 2 weeks to process your order. Now, we can do a red door test and remove this message, and you will notice that there is a significant bump in conversion rate. So it's very obvious people hate bad news, and therefore, when people see it, they choose not to buy. Now, what impact is this having on conversion rates? Maybe it's having like a 15% negative impact on conversion rates, right? So we already know that because we've done this red door test. But the point here is that how do we fix it without the expensive way to do it is to re-engineer our supply chain, which is ludicrous. The simpler way to do it is to apply buyer psychology copywriting, right? So that's the way to do it. So the idea is to create a contrast. Now, let's think about it. People don't have a point of reference. This is the most important thing to remember. When you're buying something, when you're buying a cup of coffee, right? Why do people say Starbucks coffee is expensive? Because they have a point of reference, because they've bought coffee at other locations, Dunkin' Donuts, for example, and they know Starbucks is more expensive. But for most things, we don't have a point of reference. So, for example, if I'm a buyer and I come to a website and I see that there is a 2 week delay because of COVID, is that too much? Is that too little? Is that just the right amount? We don't know. We just don't have that perspective. So the technique as a copywriter is to create contrast. Now, how do you create contrast? There are two ways in this case that you can do it. Now, for Rev Air, I happened to have been on their website 2 months ago, and I had noticed at that point that their back order date was much more than this. I think it was like 4 weeks. In fact, I think the product was not even available. Like they literally said that due to high demand, we've stopped all orders, right? So one way of creating contrast is to actually have messaging on this page. And you can have a little button that says, what this means or whatever. Anyway, the point is that right next to that bad news, right? Let's make it positive news by saying that if you had come here a month ago, the back order date was actually 4 weeks. Now suddenly the user has contrast and they can say, oh, it's actually twice as good as it was a month ago. That might be good enough to get 5% of them to say, I'm going to buy. The other technique that you can apply is you can explain why that makes sense. So you can kind of talk about the fact that we care so much about the quality of our product. We had a choice. We could have kind of said, let's take the production higher in order to satisfy this demand because we have this demand. But we made a choice to say that we need to hold our quality standards. The thing that brought us from where we were 5 years ago to where we are today is the craftsmanship of our machines, and we cannot compromise on that. We hope you understand, but it's worth the wait. So these are two ways in which you can use contrast. Tell me what you think about it. I mean, it's something that I've kind of played around in my head quite a bit. I've used it actually quite a bit as well, but I never gave it a name. So now I'm calling it creating contrast. Have a great day.